expected points, captaincy, clean sheet odds, the best players to buy, and I've got an update on all the key injuries that occurred in Game Week 30. In this video, you're going to find out everything you need to know for Game Week 31. Alright then, we're going to start out this video by talking about the top players for expected points by position, starting off with the goalkeepers. Kelleher takes the #1 spot, with Sheffield United at home being his fixture. I mean, pretty much the best fixture you can ask for. 6.5 expected points for him against Sheffield United. In second place, we got David Raya of Arsenal, who I think probably going forward for the long run is literally the best goalkeeper in the game. Ortega of Man City, with Ederson still being out injured, didn't play against Arsenal. He could well be a really nice option, but I'd say we need some news on Ederson really to define how long he's going to be out for to determine if Ortega's a good option. Neto, Crystal Palace at home is a good fixture for him as well. Of course, he's got a double game week in 34, so if you've kept him this long, you may as well do, and you could even start him, I think, in Game Week 31. For Bruggen of Brighton, Leno, Dubravka, Sells, and Vicario are the top keepers for expected points. Defenders up next then, and Ben White takes top spot. The Arsenal defender who's got Luton at home. I think he dominates the draft town algorithms compared to all of the other Arsenal defenders. For me, in my mind, in my heart, I kind of think Gabriel is a slightly better option, but draft town has Ben White as #1 for expected points for Game Week 31. Conor Bradley, Virgil van Dijk in second and third. Obviously, Sheffield United being a really good fixture for Liverpool. I'd have a slight hesitation as to whether Bradley plays against Sheffield United. You know, with Trent potentially coming back from injury, Joe Gomez able to play there, etc., etc. Don't know. Is he going to start? I'd say there's a little bit of a question mark around that. I think he probably does, just looking at his levels physically. He seems to be full of energy and able to sprint around for 90 minutes and then play the day after, to be honest. He's that kind of player, so wouldn't be surprised to see him start. And if he does, I think he's a really nice option, particularly considering his price. Virgil van Dijk at 6.6 million, obviously a little bit more expensive, but just that bit more nailed for Liverpool. I think as long as he's fit, he's going to play absolutely every minute for them. Kivior, Gabriel and Saliba, the three other starting Arsenal defenders, are right up there for expected points as well. Then we see Konate and Gomez, obviously two sort of fringe Liverpool defenders, but I imagine, you know, the expected back five for Liverpool will be Bradley, Virgil van Dijk, Konate and Gomez. And then we've got Kanji up there as well. Aston Villa at home for Man City. Not the best fixture, but I think based on, you know, how frugal they are in terms of XGC, expected goals conceded, you're not surprised to see him up there. I'd actually say, if I were to pick a Man City defender going forward, is Gvardiol. With his ability to play at left back with the amount of injuries that Man City have at the moment, looking at Ake, for example, who came off injured, I really like Gvardiol as an option. I'd say he's probably a little bit better than Akanji. Might not be just for Game Week 31 alone, but for the long term, I think he's probably the most nailed defender for Man City going forwards. But, you know, is there such thing as a truly nailed Man City defender? Probably not. Those are the top defenders for expected points. On to the midfield, and I can't imagine you're too surprised to see Mo Salah top of the list. 9.5 expected points against Sheffield United at home. I think for a player with a single game week, this is the highest expected points I've seen this season from Draft Town. I mean, who can blame them, right? Sheffield United at home is literally the best fixture Liverpool can ask for, and they are looking so dangerous in front of goal. Every game I see them play, they create, well, Salah had 12 shots in Game Week 30 in the game that he played against Brighton. I mean, who knows how many he can get against Sheffield United, right? Second place, we got Palmer. Man United at home is still, you know, a fixture where he could feasibly score. Son in third place, West Ham away. I think they could be a little bit of a slip-up team for Tottenham. The way they sit back and defend quite deep, I think, might give Tottenham some problems. But obviously wouldn't rule out Son scoring in that game. Luis Diaz, who seems to have nailed down that left-hand side spot for Liverpool now and has played himself back into form. The kind of form he was in when he first signed for Liverpool, when he looked absolutely electric on that left-hand side. And he seems to be playing to that level again. Kai Havertz, Odegaard, Foden, Saka and McAllister are your other top midfielders. Up front then, and we've got Erling Haaland, top of the list. Aston Villa at home, I'd say for goal scoring is a good fixture for Man City. You know, Villa are not the best team in the league defensively, I don't think. I do fancy his chances to score quite well in that game. Darwin Núñez in second place, of course, with Sheffield United at home being his fixture. I think he could do really well. I would ask some questions about if he's going to start, obviously playing with games so close to one another, he's not the best player in terms of injury proneness. He's been carrying a few niggling injuries throughout this season, I would suggest. But I just think the gulf between him and Gakpo at the moment, Gakpo is in no kind of form or rhythm, whereas Darwin Núñez is playing basically to his peak at the moment. I'd probably suggest that Darwin Núñez is going to start. Probably doesn't play the 490, but I think against Sheffield United, he doesn't need to score well. So yeah, makes sense for those two to be top. Isak for Newcastle, obviously a really good option as well. He's going to be on penalties. Everton, definitely in a poor run of form at the moment. I don't think they've won a Premier League game since last year. Yes, Newcastle United are poor defensively, but they are not struggling to score goals, so quite like him as an option. We've got Solanke against Crystal Palace. Nailed for 90 minutes, plays through injuries, he's on penalties, and he's got a nice fixture against Crystal Palace at home. And he doubles in Game Week 34. Jackson and Muniz, Semenyo, Werner and Wood are your other top forwards. Quick little peek at the clean sheet odds then, and we've got two teams top of the list, 55% each for Arsenal and Liverpool to keep a clean sheet in their respective fixtures. I'd say Arsenal are the strongest defence in the league at the moment. Just kept a clean sheet at the Etihad. They just look really strong. Gabriel and Saliba making a really formidable centre-back partnership with obviously Rice covering them from a midfield perspective. But I'd say Liverpool have a slightly better fixture. Luton have had no issues scoring goals this season, and I wouldn't say it'd be a massive surprise to see Arsenal concede to Luton this week, despite them having clean sheet odds suggesting they're more likely to keep a clean sheet than not, right? But Luton, they look so dangerous going forward, I wouldn't be surprised to see them score. Whereas Sheffield United, I think they're going to have a really hard time scoring against Liverpool, particularly considering I think Konate is going to be back in defence and Trent could well be back in the team as well. I just have a feeling he might shift into midfield with Bradley playing right back. Let me know how you think Bradley will play when Trent is back in the team, and the Liverpool side actually. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts. Man City in third place on 44. Then we've got Bournemouth on 36. Now, any other teams really that are below 30% in terms of clean sheet odds, I wouldn't back a clean sheet from. And really, we're seeing so few clean sheets this Premier League season. I think these numbers kind of hold up really. So anything below Bournemouth there, you're not really expecting a clean sheet from your players. But again, I wouldn't be, I think one of the key things around picking defenders this year isn't really worrying about clean sheets as such. It's about picking the ones that are most likely to score points from attacking returns. So yeah, you can kind of take your pick there. For example, Tottenham defenders, West Ham away, they might well concede, but I wouldn't back against them not keeping a clean sheet, but getting some attacking returns. So yeah, wouldn't necessarily worry about clean sheets. It's more focused on attacking returns. Apart from Arsenal, Liverpool, of course, and potentially Man City. I think those three teams could conceivably keep a clean sheet. Just a bit of chat around captaincy next. I've got a couple of sources of expected points to talk through. Draft Hound have Salah, as we've just seen, as their number one asset. Over 2 expected points more than any other player. Sheffield United at home, I think, is the strongest fixture, and, well, he's the best player in FPL history, right? Got the best fixture. I think it kind of makes sense to captain him, really. And just to back it up, FPL reviewers saying the same. It's quite close, interestingly, between him and Son, although Salah does take the lead. I back Salah over Son this week. Yes, Son could well score against West Ham away, but yeah, Salah, Sheffield United at home, I wouldn't think twice. I think he's definitely the best captain. Right then, so on to a bit of injury update / news. Now, I'm recording this at 11 AM on Monday, Easter Monday morning, so we could well get some press conferences or some news come out after this video. So I'm just working with the information or speculation in some cases that we have now. Now, Gusto was the most popular transfer player for Game Week 30. More people bought him than any other player, and it was really unfortunate with Arsenal keeping a clean sheet and him going off injured. I would say an FPL Physio is a really good account to follow on Twitter. They basically predict based on the incidents that happen in a game. They watch them in slow motion and try and understand what's actually happened to these players. You don't have to read all the text on it, but basically in summary, FPL Physio thinks that Gusto may have left the pitch with cramp. Considering the physios were giving him salt, electrolytes, sugar and water, which is what you need when you have cramp rather than, hamstring treatment for a hamstring injury, it suggests that he might have just had a bad spout of cramp rather than actually have pulled a hamstring. So that could well mean, and I wouldn't be massively surprised to see him actually start in Game Week 31. I definitely don't think Gusto is a sell. With the quality of fixtures he's got coming up, potentially 2 double game weeks in the pipeline. He's nailed on, I think, to start for Chelsea now. I think even when Reece James comes back and potentially plays right back, I think Gusto has been in such good form that he could play left back ahead of Chilwell. I genuinely think that could occur. But for me, he may well miss Game Week 31, but I don't think it's going to be a long, time out. I think he could well be back for Game Week 32. That's what FPL Physio predicts. I just have a feeling, I don't have any medical qualifications, etc. But if it was cramp, he could just play in game week 31 and it'd be nothing to worry about. So for me, you know, if you don't think he's going to play and it's going to be a couple of weeks out, then I'd definitely bench him. I wouldn't sell him because I don't think it's a long-term injury, particularly if you have options on your bench. So might be time to go to your bench. And even considering, you know, he's got Man United as his fixture, which isn't the best, right? So conceivably, you might have a defender on your bench to replace him with. Now, we did also have an injury to Jamal Lascelles. He went down with a knee injury, actually played on. He had to come off because he'd done his ACL, which is absolutely amazing that he could play on with a broken, well, a ruptured ACL. Can't imagine the kind of pain he was in. Maybe he was just running off adrenaline, but Lascelles would have been a fairly popular transfer, I think, particularly with managers on their wild card, because he's got a double in potential double game week in 37, and Newcastle had a really nice run of fixtures. You're going to have to replace him, basically, if he's out for 6 to 9 months. You might not have to do it this week, because, you know, you could just stick him on your bench and maybe prioritise another transfer. But, I mean, ultimately, you don't want him in your team if he's out for 6 to 9 months. And in general, I think this means bad news for Newcastle defence, to be honest, because 2 of their best centre-backs are injured. I don't know who's going to play there now. It's probably Kraft, is it? The other centre-back that could play there, or potentially someone from the youth team. I think Newcastle are in all kinds of trouble defensively now, and it's definitely time to sell Lascelles. So with those 2 injuries in mind, I've got a couple of players that you might want to replace both Gusto and Lascelles with. The first one is Richards of Crystal Palace. Like-for-like replacement, I would say, for Lascelles. And if you want to save a bit of cash on Gusto because you think he's going to be out long-term, like I said, I don't think he is, but if you want to get rid of him, I think Richards is one of the options you could go for. Palace now playing 5 at the back under their new manager. He's playing every game. He's got a double in game week 34. And I'd definitely say they look improved under their new managers. But, and the stats are wrong there, he's barely kept a clean sheet in the time that he's played. I think he's kept 1 clean sheet in 17 games. Ignore the stats there. You can find them on FPL yourself. So they're not amazing, but ultimately, if you're looking to pick a 3.9 million defender, right, you're not too worried about the amount of points they're going to get. You just want them to play. And I think Richards, there's also Charlie Taylor as well. I'll probably back Richards over Taylor, right, just because he's got that double in 34. And Crystal Palace just a little bit better than Burnley, I would say. So Richards, like-for-like replacement for Lascelles. The next player, if you've got a bit of cash spare, I'd say Ait-Nouri is probably your best bet. He looks to be absolutely nailed on to start for Wolves. He's their best defender in FPL because he's the most attacking. And like I said, when going through the clean sheet odds, at the moment, I'd say when you're picking a defender, the main thing to look for, just with the sheer lack of clean sheets we're seeing in the league at the moment, is their likelihood to get attacking returns. And Ait-Nouri, I'm pretty sure he's got 4 attacking returns in his last 6 games in all competitions, which is obviously a really good standard. And I'd say, you know, he's not an option that you'd want to bench for many game weeks. He's got Burnley, West Ham, Forest, a double game week, and then Luton. You could conceivably start him every week for the next 5 weeks. And yeah, I really like him as an option. He's a little bit more expensive, obviously, than Richard and Gusto, who was, I think, now 4.3 million. So you probably need a bit of cash in the bank to get to him. But with the double in 34, I think he's a really nice option. All right, then. The next injury was Ollie Watkins, who got subbed off at halftime against Wolves in game week 30. The news we've got at the moment is a couple of quotes from Unai Emery, who spoke to both Aston Villa Fan TV and the Birmingham Mail, by the looks of it. He's saying it's maybe a hamstring injury and he's going to be checked. Hopefully he's not out for a long time. And then the other quote is saying, basically, Watkins told them that he could play on, but the doctor said not to take any risks. So they're going to scan him. And then hopefully the scan won't show a lot, but obviously he doesn't know. Now, ultimately, injury or not, I think Ollie Watkins is probably a sell at this point, particularly if you're on your wild card in game week 31, just because he doesn't have a double game week coming up. And I just feel like, I don't know how you feel, if this injury is going to be bothering him, I think his form is going to start to dwindle a little bit. And particularly with other strikers playing well and having a double game week, I think there are options you can definitely replace him with. I think I would definitely be looking at Dominic Solanke to replace him. He's nailed for 90 minutes, takes penalties, and I'd say the 2 weeks off he's had over the international break have really helped him recover from that injury. Most people would know that he was carrying a bit of a niggling knee injury that he picked up a couple of weeks before the international break. And it's kind of holding him back from playing to his full potential. Back with a bang with a goal against Everton in game week 30. He's got Crystal Palace in 31, Luton in 32, Man United, who have just conceded, I believe, 31 shots against Brentford, a double game week in 34, and then Brighton in game week 35. Like, he could conceivably score in all 5 of those game weeks. Now for 90 minutes on penalties, has so many routes to points, and of course has a double game week in 34. And he's just a set and forget option, right? You could set him in your team all season, start him every week. and I think he'd do really well for you. So yeah, my number one replacement for Ollie Watkins, if I didn't have Solanke already, would be Solanke. Now next up, I definitely think Darwin Núñez, player for player, is better than Dominic Solanke, but I just think his minutes and the fact he's not on penalties kind of detract from him a little bit, but he's definitely a decent option. If you've already got Solanke, I'd suggest Watkins to Núñez be your transfer. He's putting up absolutely amazing underlying numbers. I'd say he's really seems to have found the goal-scoring form, although he didn't score in Game Week 30, I know, but he was missing a lot of chances beforehand, and I just feel over the last few Premier League game weeks, he's kind of found that sort of goal-scoring rhythm. And he's got a great set of fixtures for the run-in. Doubles in Game Week 34. And I'd say if you do have a little bit of doubt around his minutes, I think he's played 5 or 6 games this season when he's come off the bench. And I'm pretty sure he's had 3 or 4 attacking returns in that time. So half the occasions he's come off the bench, he's got an attacking return. So, you know, even if he doesn't start, suggests he can be dangerous, particularly against Sheffield United. So yeah, Darwin Núñez, Solanke, I think, are the 2 guys to get in for Watkins. And finally, if you can't afford either of those 2, we have at the moment 2 strikers in and around 4.5 million that are playing every week and are in really good form in Muniz and Semenyo. I think Muniz is now 4.7, so 4.5 million-ish. But you should be able to afford both of these players, right? And I think which one you bring in kind of depends on your chip strategy. I think if you're free hitting in Game Week 34, Muniz is the guy to go for. And if you're not, Semenyo is with his double in 34. Looking at the stats, I won't go through them in complete detail, but Muniz has the better stats, no question about it, which means for me, you know, if you're free hitting, in 34, he's the better option. But I think Semenyo with the double game week in 34 kind of makes it quite level pegging, particularly if you're not free hitting. So I'd say Muniz if you're free hitting in 34, Semenyo if you're not, are perfectly decent options. If you want to save some cash, maybe restructure your team if you're selling Ollie Watkins. A bit of goalkeeper chat to round off the video, with Areola going off injured in Game Week 30. Suspected thigh injury that he's having a scan on Sunday. Hopefully we get some news before the Game Week deadline. Basically, with all of these players, we don't have a confirmed update based on scans, etc. from their managers. Hopefully we get some news in the press conferences. But yeah, Areola unfortunately went off injured. The most popular goalkeeper in the game. I mean, we'll wait and see on the news. But I imagine with managers having Areola and Dubravka in goal, potentially that being their double up, Dubravka losing Lascelles in front of him and having what I thought was a really poor game in Game Week 30 against West Ham, I would be worried about having both of those goalkeepers in my team at the moment. And I'd probably be looking to replace them. And I've got a couple of goalkeepers lined up you might want to pick instead. First up, I said when going through the goalkeepers, I think David Raya is the best goalkeeper in FPL right now. I think having double Arsenal defence is a good way to play the game. I'm assuming you probably already have either Gabriel and Saliba or Saliba. I think Gabriel probably the best defender in the game going forward. So an Arsenal double up with their potential to keep clean sheets. I think the best way to do it is to double up Gabriel and David Raya. I mean, Raya's now going to play every game. He's got his Brentford loan games out of the way. Obviously, he would be loan tied, so couldn't start those. Got a double game week in 34. When you look at those fixtures coming up, based on how well Arsenal have played defensively, I think they could conceivably keep a clean sheet in all of them. David Raya's definitely not the best for making saves, only 1.48 per game, but 23 starts, 10 clean sheets. He basically keeps a clean sheet in half the games he plays, which compared to other goalkeepers is really, really good. So top replacement for Areola/Dubravka would be David Raya. If you can't quite afford David Raya, I'd still say Petrovic is a decent option. Obviously, unfortunately conceded a couple of goals against Burnley, but I just think with the quality of the run-in that Chelsea have, there's going to be some clean sheets for them, or at least I hope there is. He should be starting for a while with Sanchez being injured. Goalkeepers at this price, few and far between for good ones. I suggest maybe Pickford could be a good option as well, but I just think Chelsea is slightly better than Everton. And he does have 2 double game weeks coming up. Doesn't double in 34, I'll admit, but he potentially has a double in 36 and 37. And he is playing really well, right? He's making a decent amount of saves, 2.86 per 90. I would expect some clean sheets to come, potentially against Sheffield United and Everton. I think he's just definitely one to keep an eye on and have on your shortlist, right? One thing I would say, he's got Man United in Game Week 31, right? Which on paper you'd consider a tough fixture. But I'm pretty sure Man United v Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, where the game will be happening, is the most nil-nilled fixture in Premier League history. So wouldn't rule out a clean sheet in that one either. That would kind of be written, wouldn't it? The game where you don't expect Chelsea to keep a clean sheet, they draw 0-0 and do something like that could genuinely happen. So yeah, just thought I'd talk through a couple of goalkeeper replacements for Areola. Well, that felt like a lot to go through, didn't it? And that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. That was pretty much all the information I could think to be useful to you for Game Week 31. If there's anything I missed or anything else you want to know, please let me know in the comments. And if there's any thoughts you have, on some of those players I've suggested, some of the injury news that I've spoken about, please let me know in the comments as well. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a like rating. And if you want to see more videos from me, you can subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel, which should be just there. Thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next one.